All right, my fellow TFFL owners, welcome. Welcome to another TFFL webcast. It's Wednesday. It's November 12th. We're looking ahead to Week 11 TFFL action now. I'm Stick, and joined as always by Hank, Berto, and Chief, with our special guest tonight at long last, the Supremo. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so coming up later in the show, we'll have the long-anticipated Eye on the TFFL interview with Ralph. We're going to talk a lot tonight about what a fun mess this league is as we approach Week 11 with, appropriately, 11 teams still harboring at least somewhat realistic hopes of making the playoffs. Much more to come, but first we'll start, as we do every week, with TFFL trivia. And this, we're honored here tonight to be joined by the creator of the Marley Trophy. So tonight's question, and I should point out that the Marley Trophy is not actually awarded because there isn't a trophy, but we do keep track of it in the archives. Not awarded annually to the best regular season franchise in the league. Name the TFFL franchise with the most Marley Trophy winning campaigns. Here's your hint. It's not the Steel City Mongols. Okay, so write down your answer. Viewers at home, write down your answer. I'll give you the correct response later in the show. All right, looking back quickly on Week 10 action. Chief, our commissioner, best and worst lineup moves of the week.
Buys were a funny thing this week, but for we had two franchises with 0 points on their bench, which I'm not sure I've ever seen that before. So I wasn't going to give a worst start award since I don't feel like evaluating kickers and dinging people on the kicker selection. However, I changed my mind. And I'm going to give it to the person who's on the very left of my screen here, which is Mike Bertolozzi, for picking up Mark Sanchez in the FA process and proceeding to start Carson Palmer in front of him, turning a 19-point performance into a 3-point performance, which I think would have gotten a 1-point win. Am I right, Berto? Or more than that, he lost by 12.
I lost by 12.
So we've got a win right there.
But in all fairness, Carson Palmer had 2 touchdowns in 4 consecutive games or something like that. So
I think it's hard to go against the Eagles' offense. I don't fault you for not starting Romo. I think Dallas was a little crazy playing Romo play as well as he did. Best start of the week for the second consecutive week, I'm going to give to the Boba Fett's for getting 14 points from Denard Robinson. Thank heaven for garbage time touchdowns, and 10 points out of Terrence West. By benching Reggie Bush, which Reggie's had an off year between injuries and non-effectiveness, but he's healthy now. It took a pretty bold call to bench him for favor of likes of Terrence West, who hasn't done much in the last couple weeks, and has one heck of a 3-headed monster in Cleveland. I mean, I have one of the other parts of that 3-headed monster. I haven't started him all year because I don't know if he's going to get 15 touches or 3. So kudos to Boba Fett's. And I think we'll have to talk about the Boba Fett's at length a little bit later on.
All right, so now what we do is we shift over to Hank. We're looking for the playoff picture at this point. I'll be real curious to see what our graphic looks like because we know this is just a mess. Hank, I'd love to challenge you to tell us what the tiebreakers are and what the seedings would look like if we started the playoffs today. But the reality is all this stuff is going to change because we have division matchups. Everybody's still got 2 division games to go. The tiebreakers are going to change. But tell us where we are right now.
All right, I will run it down, but you just said it. I mean, let's be honest. This is about as exciting as it gets. We got 3 weeks to play here. We got a bunch of division games. Everybody gets to play the team they need to beat to get to get ahead of them. And right now, realistically, 11 teams have a shot at making the playoffs. And Ralph, I'm counting you out just simply because you have to win out, and Berto or I'd have to lose out. You'd have to hope for a lot of other things to get a wild card. So I think Ralph is the only team that's mathematically out.
It's not going to happen.
No. So but the rest of the teams, the Fats, with the next worst record, still will have a realistic shot at the division with 2 games, to play against the Aliens and Lizards. So we're looking exciting stuff here. So the picture. In the North, the Killers have taken over the top spot, 7-3. Cable's behind them in good shape for a wild card. The Lizards and Aliens tied right now, 6-4 apiece. 4-6 apiece. One of them is gonna likely emerge on top, but the Fats will have a chance to catch them. In the South, look at this. Every team is 5-5. I didn't change the Senators' record. Every team is 5-5, except for the Beavers and the Mongols, who are a game ahead. But there is nobody out of this with realistic shots. I've flipped the side over here, and I've given the Ampac and the Fats. I put a couple of stars by because they've been playing great. You can't count them out either, but they have to win this week against the Lizards, or then it's time. So it's a mess, but it's exciting.
Who do you like in the NoCo West?
I like the Lizards. They're going to get Adrian Peterson back. The Aliens are playing great. I have to give you credit. You just spanked me this week, and good for you. And your team might be coming together at the right time. But I think you may have just had the best game you're going to have this year. We'll see. The Fats have been playing well too. They beat me. They beat Berto. It's a dogfight. Who knows? Who's going to get hot? Next 3 weeks is big.
Beating the Wheels doesn't seem to be any great shakes these days.
No, I don't really want to talk about the Wheels very much.
In fact, I'm not sure you're in comfortable playoff position right now.
I'm not either. Let's be let's be candid. Nobody in the North is going to catch me. In the South, somebody's going to have to get hot, but I think you guys are going to beat each other up in the next few weeks. So, I think if I can get one more win and get to 7 wins, I think I'm in pretty good shape. To get one of the wild card spots. And hey, you never know. I got Berto this week with no Romo. He's gonna probably start Sanchez. Palmer's down.
Yep.
So I'm playing Sanchez this week. You never know when we're gonna get him. But I don't have DeMarco Murray. My running backs are a mess, as you mentioned. My team is not looking good right now, and it bothers me deeply.
I think I like the Romo DeMarco Murray trade-off actually.
Yeah, I think you get a better deal there. I need this week. I had the 3rd highest point total in the league, and just happened to play one of the 2 teams that was better than me. But half my points were Peyton Manning. And if he does that again, who knows? I can I can win most weeks.
Okay, hey, real quick, you brought up Adrian Peterson. What's the latest? How quick is he playing?
Well, apparently they're going to have his hearing either tonight or tomorrow about reinstatement. I don't know. I would guess within, I don't think this week. I think maybe next week. Who knows? It would be great to see.
Yeah,
does that help or hurt the Lizards if he comes back?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can make the argument that it would hurt them.
I think as you look over the last 3 weeks of the regular season, I'm not real worried about Adrian Peterson suddenly playing in Week 11. Maybe he plays Week 12, but he's probably sharing carries with McKinnon and Asiata a little bit. So I think to Ralph's point, it hurts the Lizards maybe a little bit in Week 12. Maybe Week 13 he's more of a force. But yeah, who knows? Okay, we're already sort of jumping ahead around the tube. We'll come back, I think, a little bit to talking about running backs and the Lizards and the Aliens. But let me start us off with a quick and easy one, like I like to do here. For those of you who are in other leagues, well, yeah, first off, everybody on the panel, I don't know the answer to this. Are you in one? Which league is most important to you? Is there anybody who doesn't think it's the TFFL? How much time do you put into these leagues? Do you find it helps or hurts your TFFL franchise?
I gave up other leagues as of about 4 years ago. I've been exclusively TFFL. And it was a priority thing. I don't have time to spend on other, redraft leagues. Any energy I'm spending doing research for another league is better spent researching this one.
Yeah, I'm in 2 other leagues. One is the redraft, and honestly, there's never any trades. It's you draft, and that's it. The other one is fairly new, and there's a little more interaction with that league, but I think any research you're doing for another league helps anyway. But absolutely, the TFL by far and away is the number one priority. But I think if you're doing research for one league, it's going to help looking at another league too. I don't think it hurts.
I am in one other league that I'm in sort of an obligation because I've been in it for several years. But I pay no attention to it. I think I'm like 2-8 or something like this, and because I like Brett said, I do research on players and on the teams and lineups and who's going to be good, and all that applies to to the TFFL. I mean, obviously this is the greatest fantasy league in the world, and the other stuff is just scratch paper.
I was in another league one season, and I think it was like three years ago, and it was a bunch of guys in the neighborhood essentially. And while it was fun to have players that I would never have in the TFFL, it was like going to a Durham Bulls game. It's nice, but it's not something that you get excited about or pissed off if you lose. And I tore through that league like like a John Deere through a wheat field. They just were not prepared to deal with someone that had been battle tested in the TFFL. It was like the Germans marching into Poland.
All right. Thank you guys for that. I'll tell you real quick. Bill and Ralph might remember when we first started the TFFL, I would type up a weekly Inside the TFFL report on Hank's Mac, print it out, and hand out copies of it around the house. And I always had a little section in there called In My Other League, because I used to be in this league, 20 years ago. And I quickly realized nobody gives a shit about your other league.
No.
No, nobody does.
So enough about your other leagues.
Well, one thing, the basketball league, though.
Yes.
I haven't paid a lot of attention to that, but if my team keeps playing the way it's playing,
We'll be here in a
devote more time to that.
Hey, I'd like to. The basketball league is a Teamster sanctioned event. And I think that, we're more than welcome to pay some attention to that. And it's exciting.
All right.
NBA fever, catch it.
Catch it.
We digress.
Most of the league.
Go on, Stick.
All right. So listen, we've the last 2 weeks we've put a TFL team under the microscope once we have unofficially eliminated them from the playoffs. Really can't do that at this point. Can't count out the aliens. We've already counted out the bats, but really shouldn't have done that maybe. We've already talked about Ralph. So let's talk about the most pressing issue out there, which is the thing that's on everybody's minds. What trades can be made in this environment? Just days to go before the trade deadline. Chief brought up a really good point in the commissioner report, and we've talked a little bit about it here, that the Lizards are, in a sense, going to acquire somebody in Adrian Peterson for what he's worth. Is anybody else going to be able to add somebody of value and separate themselves from this big pack? And Ralph might be able to give us the best answer.
Well, you got Antonio Gates sitting out there. And, I definitely think that he is someone that is going to help a TFFL franchise perhaps put him over the edge, into the playoffs and into a packed bowl run. I think half of the league maybe understands the value of a tight end. I think a lot of owners in our league kind of don't know what to do with that position. And I don't want to school people that I compete against, but the inherent value of someone that scores a set number of points, X number of points, that can be plugged in as a running back or a wide receiver, that makes them significantly more valuable. And as the season wears on, and we're going to be dealing with bye weeks again this week, and injuries and matchups, having a tight end that you can plug in and have an expectation of solid points coming to your table, I think that's a value. One thing, that I found pretty interesting during the, middle of the TFFL season was how Larry Fitzgerald's stats took a bump when Palmer was on the bench. So now that he's back on the bench, is Larry Fitzgerald going to be a player that could help someone along? Same thing with Frank Gore.
This is quite the sales pitch.
Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't make him wrong.
I know there's at least one owner on this panel who has talked to you about those players, and you seem not quite ready to put down some terms and talk and get serious about some details. I mean, I'm ready to talk to you right here, right now. Let's make a deal. Let's talk about it.
But let's be
Don't trade him Gates, for crying out loud.
No, I think you need to. I think this
Don't trade him Gates.
Right here on the webcast. Let's make this happen.
The value of anything is highest, right before the hammer hits. So, why would I, sort of give him up, over small talk? I had one owner who shall remain nameless, just make me an absolutely Kramer-esque low-ball offer. And I said, get out. Don't insult my intelligence.
Well, let me jump in on that note.
I don't think it was that bad.
That's not you.
Because I think a lot of the better teams in the league really fucked up. I mean, 4 weeks ago, I'm sitting at 1-5, cashing on the season, and people are offering me, 5th-round picks for Mark Ingram, 9th-round pick for Bob Bradshaw. Get the fuck out of here. If someone got serious and offered me a second, yeah, I'd be on to the next year. Someone else would be a leg up. But instead of reeled off 4 wins in a row, I'm in first place in my division. And we saw it happen to the Aliens. We saw it happen to the Fats. You got to get the bad teams while they're bad. You got to be aggressive and make the move.
Really good point, Chief.
I think part of the issue is a couple of us are missing draft picks next year, myself and Phil included, which is hurt. I thought I made a reasonable offer to one owner that shall remain nameless, and didn't work. But part of my issue, like I've said, I don't have a first and a second next year. Phil doesn't have a first. Phil's not trading.
Yeah, I mean,
we're in a log jam.
We're in a log jam, and like we already talked about, there's basically one team that we're talking about. We're talking about 2 or 3 players that Ralph just mentioned that are available, and Ralph hasn't really set the market on those players and said, all right, here's what it's going to take, And I know there's been offers, very little back and forth discussion to try and make a deal.
Well, I would say that Berto hit the nail on the head. The fact that a lot of the teams that are in the market are missing picks, certainly hurts. But someone in my position that has not been able to find a franchise wide receiver for a long time, since I drafted Fitzgerald, and how long ago was that? I'm looking for help at that position. I think everybody in this league, who's going to be casting, players aside and planning for the future, would look at someone that can play running back. I'm set at tight end. I'm set at quarterback. Ideally, I'm adding a young wide receiver, but I'd add a good young running back as well. Make me an offer.
And again, on November 12th, it's a one-team, supply shop. On October 20th, there's about 4 teams that you could have, were actively in the trade market that I know of.
Yeah, we started doing this webcast, I think, after week 3 or maybe before week 3. And the very first around the tube topic we talked about was, when is the point where you start making some big decisions and either selling off aggressively or going and trying to make a move and separate from the pack. And I think Berto and others agreed. Week 6, as Chief just said, was that time. Nobody made a move. And you've let teams like the Aliens and the 3-7 Facts are in the playoff hunt. And there are going to be no trades unless Ralph does something, and I bet you he will. But that's you're in a great position, Ralph.
I'd rather be headed to the playoffs again.
But in terms of supply,
I don't know if talking about how bad my team sucks and how I have 0% chance of making the playoffs headed into week 11 is a good position. But I understand what you're saying.
All right. Big topic here. Big topic. I want to talk a little bit about the sad state of running back cores around the TFFL, as well as the sudden decline of. I'm looking at guys like Doug Martin, collapsed out of nowhere. Zach Stacy, Monty Ball at least got injured. We can blame that to some extent, but so we talked about the Fats, their deteriorating running back core. The Ampacks we talked about when we looked at them last week. Their shaky depth with the Devils, the Senators, the Mongols, the Aliens. The unique challenge of the TFFL has always been having 3 really good starting quality running backs and really needing 4 or 5 to overcome buys and injuries. But as running backs have become more plug and play in the NFL, here's my question. Does that make the running back position in the TFFL more about week-to-week shuffling and active roster management, signing free agents, trading, having a bunch of depth, and less about long-term building of 3 strong studs?
Well, look, I'll just jump in quick. I felt like I had 4 really strong running backs coming into the year, and that was, I felt like, the strength of my team. And C.J. Spiller is hurt, out for the year, and Doug Martin is not showing up and not being anything like what he was, and hopefully he comes around. But I've had DeMarco Murray and Jamal Charles who've been solid. I think it's the general overall comment is running backs is tough right now. There's very few who stay healthy for the whole year, and so many teams try running back by committee situations that being in a league where starting 3 running backs is the preferred lineup. The NFL is tough right now in keeping those guys healthy and meaningful stats and meaningful carries. So it's tough. It's a luxury if you got it.
I think you hit it there, because even with those studs, keeping them healthy and getting them into the TFL playoffs is a big challenge. Last year, I started Bobby Rainey and Fred Jackson in a playoff game and then the Pac Bowl.
Nice.
So I couldn't have predicted that in a million years, but so.
I think unless you get extraordinarily lucky, the days of having 3 stud running backs are over, because there aren't enough of them in the NFL to sort of corner the market like you used to be able to. Real quick, and I don't want to take a lot of time on it, but if you just look at the top 12 running backs for fantasy points this year, going from top down, Marshawn Lynch, not a surprise. DeMarco Murray, not a huge surprise. Foster, I think everyone sort of shoveled the dirt on him. He's 3rd, and he's only 6 points out of 1st. Forte, there's a pretty big drop off from 4th to 5th. And I don't think anyone would sort of circle Matt Forte and say, "Wow, he's having a bang up season." He's 5th. He's 5th in points. Jamal Charles, you'd expect him to be higher. Ahmad Bradshaw. Where the hell did he come from?
You skipped over
Justin Forsett.
There you go.
Mark Ingram. Andre Ellington. Alfred Morris, you'd expect him to be higher. Darren Sproles. And then you start looking at guys below that everyone expected to be higher. it's a supply issue. It's an unpredictability issue, and I think the NFL has clearly said, you know what, the running back position, is not something that we need to really circle as massively important as far as investment is concerned. So, unless you are a truly talented and unique running back, they're just going to plug 3 guys in there, and each one will have his own specialty. And a guy like Frank Gore is probably still the starting running back in San Francisco, simply based on the fact that he can keep defensive linemen and linebackers off of the quarterback better than anyone else on that team, if not the league.
Yeah, and
just to seize upon one thing you mentioned there, Ralph, at the end, which I thought was a pretty good point, if not fairly obvious, but nobody else said it. In the NFL, and this is the way it is, you got to ride your running backs into the ground and let them leave as free agents. Okay, the days of having a franchise running back on your roster for 7, 8, 9, 10 years is gone. You got to give them your 4-year contract. You're not going to pay them their big money as free agency, and they got to go somewhere else where they might be part of a committee, might be part of a shitty team that's going to overspend to reach the cap. And so, working down to the fantasy level, your window with this player is very, very small. Your window with a Carlos Hyde is going to be very small. You got to hope he comes out of the box, ready to play, and putting up big points. Because, there's a few exceptions. I mean, LeSean McCoy is a great player. I think he's still only 26. Ray Rice looked to be that kind of player at one point. That just shows you how much things change. But we don't have long windows anymore if you build around running backs.
Yeah, the other thing too, Ralph said unpredictability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it always used to be wide receivers were unpredictable, right? Don't draft the stud wide receivers because you never know what they're going to do from year to year. Now, I think you have a lot more predictability at that position. Guys
Excellent.
like Marius Thomas, guys like Julio Jones, guys like Brandon Marshall, all of these guys are producing year after year after year. Maybe they may flip-flop from the top 5 or top 3 to the top 10 or top 15, but they're always in that neighborhood, and there's a lot less injuries, and they have much longer careers. And actually, it's bearing out in our draft too, right? Or in our draft, in the TFFL draft, and also in rookie running backs versus rookie receivers. Now, lately, rookie receivers are more reliable than rookie running backs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think receivers coming into the NFL now are more prepared, and probably more, easily predictable. And this is not an Antonio Gates sales pitch, but when I was looking at where he ranks as a running back and a wide receiver, he would be the number 5 running back based on how many points that he scored so far this year. He'd be the number 8 wide receiver. So I think that in and of itself, tells you that there are more receivers scoring points, and obviously that's a byproduct of the way the NFL is and the way it's a passing league. I wanted to jump in the Wayback Machine real quick to 2006. Will you ever see 3 running backs on a roster like this? I had Tiki Barber, Larry Johnson, and Frank Gore. I mean, and the numbers those guys were producing was insane. The Wheels had Steven Jackson in his prime, Edgerrin James in his prime. You flip the page to the Dust Bunnies, LaDainian Tomlinson, Work Done, were their running backs. Obviously, that's after they lost Priest Holmes. There's not that kind of running back. I don't want to say talent because I don't think it's a talent issue. I just think it's a product of the way the NFL is run today, the way the offenses are run. pass oriented, and then also, not having a bell cow running back.
All right, let's wrap up around the tube. I've got a couple more topics, but I want to save as much time as possible for Eye on the TFFL and our long-awaited guest, Ralph. Berto, take it away.
All right, great. Ralph, thanks for joining us. So the big fucking dealer, the Supremo, El Duce, Commodore, Ralph the Tank. Your nicknames now outnumber the number of wins you have this year. But in all seriousness, and the greatest TFL owner ever, right? So let's just touch on that a bit. So the Amsterdam Packers, 603 winning percentage, lifetime combined, regular season and playoffs. What's been the philosophy that's gotten you there, and are things slipping?
Well, clearly things are slipping. This will be the fourth time since '97 I've missed the playoffs. So when we miss the playoffs, it's a big deal, and we haven't won a packed bowl in close to 10 years. So we had some great seasons and we make the playoffs, but we haven't won packed bowls, and that's what I like to do. As far as a formula, I think what I try and do is, and it's more of an investment strategy than anything else. But if you can lock in, investments that are safe, and you can you have an understanding of what their return is, and it's pretty much bankable, then you can go and make bets that if some pan out, great. If some don't, that's fine too. That is the expectation. But when I go after someone like Jimmy Graham, in the third round or whenever I got him, people said, "Oh, you're nuts." Or Russell Wilson, who's not having the greatest season, but I think everyone would say he's a keeper quarterback. I feel that the players I have at key positions are good enough where I can feel confident in their ability to put points on the board every week, and that enables me to go out and swing for the fences on draft picks. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and I would probably say that recently it hasn't worked out as well as it has in the past. But if you sit at the table long enough, you're gonna experience both the highs and the lows.
Okay. So just touching on that a bit, what did you think of your draft this year? So it was roundly panned.
Terrible.
Terrible.
I mean, how could you give it anything other than an F?
Can we get a recap of the first few picks that Ralph had? Because this was a really bad draft.
I'll go top to bottom. Marcus Wheaton, who's now the third receiver in Pittsburgh. I think Roethlisberger could throw for 10 touchdowns a game, and he might get one. So
the problem there is not Marcus Wheaton. The problem there is where you took him. You could have taken him 2 rounds at least later than you did.
Hey, let Ralph keep telling us about his bank.
Go ahead.
LeGarrette Blount, I didn't have a second round pick, so I took Blount in the third. The evidence that I saw in the preseason was, it was going to be more of a shared backfield than it has been. Steve Smith in the fourth, I think we'd say that was pretty good. Cunningham in the fifth, all he does is score touchdowns. Boykin, once you get into the 6th, 7th, and 8th, you're really nitpicking. If it doesn't pan out, you really shouldn't be hoping for someone to make a massive contribution from there. But obviously, if you get one, it's nice. But the problem is the people that I took, in the first round and the third round, just didn't do anything.
Hey, you got it.
And you could say the same thing about, if you look at my keepers, I think Gore's about where you expect him to be. Matthews has been injured, so there's really nothing you could do about that. Bell has been a disappointment. Graham, has been injured, but he's still putting up points. I expected Fitzgerald to have a better season, and the same thing with Justin Hunter. As far as taking players, where I take them, I'm more concerned with who I want, and getting the player that I want than where I take them. I think a lot of people were surprised, Hank, when you took DeMarco Murray as early as you did. What? He's a first-round pick. If you didn't take him, I was gonna jump on him in the first round, and I expected people to say, "Are you out of your mind, Robes?"
Mm-hmm.
He's second, third string at best on a team that can't run and is pass-oriented. I mean, that's worked out pretty well for you, right?
Yes, very pleased with that pick.
So so it's not, and I think if you looked at the, anybody's rankings, and I do just as a gut check, whether it's CBS or ESPN or anyone out there, you definitely went against the grain going with Murray in the first round, but that panned out, and that's just one example. So, I don't really look at how a draft will unfold per se. There are guys that I want, and that was a guy that I really wanted, and my fear was if I didn't get him in the first round, by the time I drafted in the third, he would be gone. So that's why I jumped on him. It didn't pan out.
So where we're at now, so we talked about this earlier in the webcast, the pack pretty much being the odd man out right now in terms of playoffs. We're approaching 3 days or so to the trade deadline. Is this the AMPAC's opportunity to purge and start a serious rebuilding? And and part two of that question is, do you perceive this as a multi-year Senator-esque or Alien-esque rebuilding process?
As far as your first question, I definitely think that it's an opportunity to get younger. I have all my picks next year. They're going to be early, so I'll have the opportunity to, draft folks that I normally wouldn't have the opportunity to draft. I've definitely been watching a lot more college football than I have been in the past. So the opportunity to get younger, I think, is exciting. And whether I do that with the picks that I'll have, by virtue of sucking this year, is one thing. If I can pick up some good draft picks along the way, that's great too. As far as your second question, I don't think it needs to be a multiple year process. I think I have some good young players. I just need better players to support them, and I think you can do that in a draft. I think every year, there are a team or two that you can count on to get 3 starters, 3 keepers. I've done that many times in the past. So,
okay,
I would be shocked if I was not in the playoffs next year.
Okay, very good. So we're gonna do a little something different here. So in your rant back to Stick, you were looking for a support group, and we can somehow glean the sadness in your tone about the AMPAC not making the playoffs this year. So I'm going to put you down on the proverbial therapy couch here, and let's do a little word association. So first word or two, or even a sentence that comes out after I mention these things here. So Mongols.
Oh, this is my turn.
Yes. Word association. Couple words, sentence. What pops to your mind?
Mongols. I mean, they've got one of the better teams in the TFFL. They're not far back as far as total points are concerned.
Brief.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're a contender.
All right. Wheels.
Tough luck. Always a tough luck team. Whether it's injuries or surprise benchings or surprise lack of productivity from players that you expected to do better. They had a hard time with bye weeks, but I think they're definitely a contending team. They're only 5 points back from the overall scoring.
The Webcast.
Fun.
Okay.
I'll do it every week.
Two quarterback strategy, keeping two quarterbacks.
Terrible. You can only start one.
Okay. Aliens.
So you're guaranteeing that you're not going to use one of your keepers.
Okay.
To me, that makes no sense.
Aliens.
Talk a big game. Talk a big game.
Okay.
As Trey Anastasio once said, no one ever built a statue of a critic.
Let's see. What else do we have here? Killers.
I mean, you're the new kids on the block. Even though you've been in the league for Christ knows how long. Has it been 10 years now?
More. 13, I think.
Yeah. So you're not the new kid, but the sort of dominant years that I strung together, that Nick strung together. You're there now. And it's maddening and yet fun, to see the moves that you make pan out when they're not supposed to. I think a lot of people would have said, I can't believe he's pinning his hopes on Arian Foster. And here he is kicking ass again like he does every year.
Okay. Let's see. How about...
and one other thing, and this really, I think, set the table for our rivalry. I was this close to bagging Marshawn Lynch from Terry way back when, and you just beat me to it. I think I had a better offer. I don't remember what it was right now.
I gave him a lot.
I offered a lot too. But you closed the deal, and that has really panned out for you.
Trade was 2 1s, 2 2s, David Wilson, or 2 1s, David Wilson, and a 2, I think. That I gave him. All right.
Yeah.
Good. So that was fun. So hopefully, we're trying to hopefully that was a little therapeutic for you. Anyway,
it's all fun, and we got basketball.
All right, so last question here. So you had the failed experiment with the co-owner, with Somar. Are you actively looking for another co-owner? A wide receiver expert, Matt Smithers?
I don't know if I'd consider him a wide receiver expert. But yeah, I consider it. It was the couple of seasons that Somar and I did. It was fun, but he was in love with his other league, and the conversation that we had earlier this evening, he just couldn't get into it being a co-owner. in this league the way he could his other league as as the primary owner.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it a failed experiment. Come on.
All right, so let's
New Coke, that's a failed experiment.
let's go to the panel here. So let's start with Phil tonight. I think Phil's itching to ask a question. We'll go Phil, Chief, and then Stick.
Ralph, I don't have any questions to you. But first of all, I want to say I'm very proud of you for showing up here tonight and being on the webcast. We've been calling you out to come on board. Look, I have emailed you during this webcast about Antonio Gates. I think it is time that in the coming days that you decide what it's going to take, and dialogue ensues, and I think a trade should go down now, if not sooner.
All right, we'll talk. We'll talk. But I mean, in all fairness, we talked about how many teams are alive right now.
Yeah.
So, and I think I said this early on in the process. Unless someone makes me an offer that knocks my socks off, and I'm not wearing socks, so that'd be pretty difficult. There's no need for me to pounce on something, especially when we're talking about within my own division.
Yeah, I understand. But it underscores the difficulty of where I think not just me, but I think all teams are right now in terms of acquiring any kind of talent for the stretch run and building any kind of depth with what's out there on the free agent wire, or what or who even might be available by trade.
Hey, let's be blunt. You're not making a strong enough offer. Step it up. Be bold.
Yeah, well, and I will, but but there's, I like to have some level of parameter. I mean, this is the most discussion or feedback I've gotten on offers to date, and I don't even really know, so he doesn't like my offer. All right, well, let's talk about what he would like.
Well, I didn't read your email because I'm giving my undivided attention to this webcast. I'll break away from it for a second. I saw your offer. Here's one that I got. And this was a text message I received. Antonio Gates for a 2015 fifth. Need him
that
for
wasn't me.
12.
Not me either.
Not me.
I know. And I responded, LOL fifth. I mean, come on.
How many teams are making offers to you right now, Ralph?
I mean, that was the second. Hank was the first. That was the second. I don't exactly have teams knocking down my door. So maybe the problem is their sense of urgency.
Thornburg.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Thornburg, Berto, you brought this up many weeks ago. 3 first-round picks. Are you surprised he didn't make a move, as Chief suggested, that he should have back in week 6, or is he not doing it now? I mean, what is he doing with those picks?
He told us himself what he was doing with it. He's waiting until next year to use them in the draft.
He's sitting on them.
He's sitting on them. He's not going to trade those picks. He likes the college running back class that's coming out so much that he's sitting on those picks, and so I don't think he's going to do it. So that might be the other problem with getting a guy like Gates, is maybe there just isn't enough draft picks. Doesn't have any.
And hopefully those picks are the 10th, 11th, and 12th picks.
That's right.
Right, and
the 12
good players
being the killers.
Yeah, so we've already said the top 2 teams, Hank and Berto, don't have the picks to spend. And then the number 3 team, the Beavers, have all the picks and don't seem willing to spend them. So you can see why we're not getting deals done.
Well,
I'm not trying to shove Thornburg off the fence, to give me one of his first-round picks. But you look at the top running backs in the league this year. He's got, let's see, Bell, who's young, Ellington, who's young, Miller, who's young. What does he need to backfill for?
Right.
I mean, is he gonna spend 2 of those first round picks on running backs to go 5 deep? I mean, that's asinine.
He will. You will. We were talking about it earlier. It's about getting lottery tickets and good ones with running backs, and Thornburg wants to build a stable, and I mean get 5 running backs, and you can make something happen in this league.
Yeah, that's great. That's 2015, and who knows what the hell's going to happen in 2015?
That's still next year, right?
Bell and Blanc could get caught with a pound of weed in their trunk. And there goes one. You're sitting at 6-4. You've got one of the best teams in the league. What are you holding on to chips for?
Oh.
I think now
you got pocket aces. Push them chips in.
I don't want to speak for Bill, but I think he said he was going to take this year as a rebuilding year, and I think he's still a view whatever he gets this year is going to be a bonus. And he's playing for a 2015 through 2019 kind of window. Hey, for good or ill, I mean, again, I don't want to talk for him, but that's the impression I get.
So let me steer us back to the eye and the impact. Chief, did you have a question for Ralph?
Yeah, Ralph, you're one of the you don't email as much as you used to.
No.
And if you asked me 3 years ago, I would have said that's a good thing. Now I think it's definitely a bad thing. But it seems like a large percentage of your emails discuss a rule change that you don't agree with, or a proposed rule change that you don't see the point of. So let me ask you, as a former rules chairman and current commissioner, what one rule, if any, if it's none, it's none, would be a real benefit to this league?
Benefit?
A benefit to this league to one rule change you would push for.
Well, I mean, I think the sort of the conversation that we had earlier this evening on running backs. I think maybe it's time to make it 2 running backs and a tight end. And that's not someone who's simply speaking because he's historically had good tight ends. But I think having to start 3 running backs week in, week out is ridiculously hard. And it's.
Let me just clarify. You mean a mandatory tight end, or the ability to start 2 tight ends, or tight ends only at the running back position?
I think mandatory 2 running backs, mandatory 1 tight end.
Okay.
Would be if we were to sort of throw out everything, and as far as players are concerned, and start over, and try and keep as much as we can of what we do, that would probably be the winning formula as far as lineups are concerned. And I know there's politics involved with getting that changed, but I think it's more of a reflection of where the NFL is right now. I think it would make for more points scored. Maybe failing that, I would say being able to start a tight end as a wide receiver, would be a good idea. So you could start 2 tight ends, but only 1 as a running back. And I hate being able to put suspended players on IR. But I don't really think that impacts the league at all.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Dick.
Ralph, I do have an important question I want to ask. We got about 10 minutes to go, so I'll try to ask you to stay brief if you can. We're going to go off topic a little bit here, but the TFFL has always been about keeping us together and keeping us a part of each other's lives. Fair to say you drifted on us a little bit. Tell us what you do. What's a Ralph Giovenco day? How's your company going? Why are you working so hard?
Well, that's the American dream, right? Living down here in Cary, North Carolina, with 2.5 kids and a 2.5-year-old dog. Running your own business, not answering to anyone. My day-to-day is I wake up half the days I drive Ralphie to school and drive Thea to school. The other days I pick him up from school, work on the second floor in the desk that I'm sitting at now, deal with clients. I meet with them about once a week, and it's fun, yet challenging as far as setting a schedule is concerned, where you're sort of half a Mr. Mom during the week, and then you're also working. So a lot of the times, we're doing our work after we put the kids to bed. So for a lot of stuff, our work day starts at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So that kind of turns your sleeping habits upside down. But as far as the league is concerned, and participation or non-participation, it's hard. It's challenging to be involved and mouthy and engaged if your team sucks. I guess if you're used to that, if you're comfortable with that, that's one thing. But it kind of pisses me off that every week my team is not doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, to your last point, I always have wondered if owners out there are thinking, who the heck are these four guys to sit up here and preach at us about the TFFL every week? And I think it's fair to say we're kind of justified. We got 3 first-place teams up here, and the K-Wheels.
And the also.
Oh, well done.
But hey, Ralph, look, I know you're not just working. You're building something there. I know you're working really hard. We miss you a little bit, but good luck with everything.
Thank you. And I should be up in D.C. in the not too near future, or not too far future.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us, Ralph.
Yes, indeed.
My
Well
pleasure.
done, Ralph.
Anytime.
All right, we still got who knows how many podcasts to go throughout the regular season and the playoffs. We're going to need many more interviews, so reach out to Berto if you'd like to join us as our guest. Let's wrap up the TFFL trivia for the week. Again, what we're looking for here is the franchise with the most Marley Trophy winning campaigns. Who do you got?
I think it's our guest.
I got the Devils, the AMPAC. Is that another Devils?
Yes.
All right. The answer is actually, and Ralph, who did you guess?
Lizards.
The Lizards. The answer is the AMPAC.
Nice.
Nice. Question.
With three regular season titles for the Amsterdam Pack. All right, Chief, closing thoughts from our commissioner. Well, no, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. Let's. In fact, I really shouldn't be because we got a lot of big games coming up in Week 11. Before your closing thoughts, let's go through the schedule and talk about the game of the week.
Yeah, we do. We have obviously we're starting the head-to-head process. It's going to determine who gets the playoffs. Writing down the non-games of the week, we have the sponge, and the spreads I give are up to the moment. So if someone has 3 buys in the lineup, I really didn't check. But we have a sponge +3 at the Hams, Aliens -16 at the Lizards, Boba Fett's -6 at the AMPAC, Devils -8 at the Senators, and the Mongols +35 at the Beavers. I tell you, I've said it several times. I think the Beavers are really the class of the SoCo right now. Game of the week, the Wheels versus the Giant Killers. And that game is right now even based on the lineups that are input. Now, we've talked several times about the Wheels running back difficulties. Right now, the Wheels are starting 2 Chief running backs versus Seattle and Tim Wright.
Yeah.
Phil, knock this shit off.
Well, hey, what do you want me to do, man? I mean, I
Get
got
Antonio Gates, get Frank Gore, do something. Because I'm going to tell you, this lineup, you're not making the playoffs. That's my call today. You have to start, and hey, it's beyond your control. You have injuries. You have other guys who've been benched.
No.
You have a guy on bye. I understand that. But when you're starting 2 guys from the same team and the Patriots' number 2 tight end, that's a clear cry for help.
Yes.
And you said it yourself before. Half your points last week came from Peyton Manning. He's got the Rams this week, so he has a chance to put a big number up. And you have to need probably about 30 points out of him to stay in this.
God forbid there's a Tim Wright touchdown this week. That would be catastrophic.
Yes, but and even saying all of this, that right now the com.com has us at 81-81. So
I know.
Even so, Rob.
How many points did you give Manning? 35?
I don't know.
So, I mean,
40.
Mark Sanchez outscores Peyton Manning this week.
Let's not get silly now.
I got $5 on that, Berto.
Yeah.
Give me some.
No.
The fact that Berto's down Tony Romo this week is probably good for his long-term prospects, but it definitely gives Hank more than a puncher's chance here.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what the Sanchez can do for the Giant Killers. But there's a chance Tim Wright could have 80 yards and 2 touchdowns against Indianapolis on Sunday night. But it's hard to imagine both Kansas City running backs having good games against Seattle. It's hard to imagine one of them having a really good game against Seattle. So I think Giant Killers gonna win this, fairly comfortably, maybe by about a 12 to 15 point spread.
All right.
I'm going to predict another heartbreaker for Phil. Giant Killers win by 1.
All right. I'm just writing it down. Go ahead. Yeah, let's see how it goes. I'm not making any predictions. I mean, my team is in a little bit of trouble right now. I would like to have a little different lineup on the field come Sunday, but we'll see what happens. You do what you can.
Personally, I think Aliens Lizards is the game of the week.
Yeah.
You can make a case for several. For Sponge Hams.
Regardless of the winner of the Giant Killers and Wheels, they're in a driver's seat to make the playoffs. Lizards Aliens is a slobber knocker. Whichever team wins that game is probably going to go on and win the division and make the playoffs. A shitty team. The other team, whoever loses that game, is probably not going to make the playoffs. It's sort of like watching World Series of Poker. Right now it's 50%. If they're going to win or not. If they win next week, the odds go up to 85% and down to 15% if you lose. To me, that's the fun game.
I tell you, if the Wheels lose, they're at 6-5, and I don't think they're making the playoffs.
Well, they get the impact in week 12, which helps.
Yeah.
And the Lizards in week 13, and I'd like to think they're going to beat the Lizards. So I think the K-Wheels are okay, but Chief, you make a really good point. And I just maybe it's masked a little bit by the fact that the Aliens scored 94. But yeah, the K-Wheels are coming in at 78, 52, 68. They lost with 61.
And the good scores.
Good score.
They'll beat most teams. They'll beat the bad teams.
Right.
So if you look at it the way it is now, Giant Killers in, all right.
Yeah.
Beavers or Mongols in, all right, and then someone's going to come out of the West, all right. So if Hank is sitting at 6-5, you're looking at either the Beavers or the Mongols also at 6-5. All right. Who's gonna win? Are two of the teams in the West gonna win? The SoCo West gonna win to get up to 6-5, and contend for a wild card slot? I don't see it.
The Senators will, and the winner of the Sponge Hams game this week will.
Yeah, if the Senators beat the Devils, I mean that's going to be tough. Each of the Southern Conference games, really, maybe not this week so much, but over the next 2 weeks, really is our elimination games. I mean,
you really can't hide how well the Senators have been playing lately.
No, they've been good.
They've just been lights out.
This is really fun. We're gonna have every game is a big game down the stretch here. Back to the game of the week, Berto. I mean, I think the big question is the health of Foster and Brandon Marshall.
Yeah. So, that's huge. If Foster's in, I got a good shot. Brandon Marshall, to be honest with you, has not exactly been lighting it up. So that's more. I think I can overcome that a little bit, especially with the way Bolden's playing. Foster being out of lineup would be a big hit. Absolutely.
I think you're going to end up.
Alfred Blue is no Arian Foster.
Yeah, I think you're going to end up taking Marshall out of your lineup.
That's a possibility.
Just saying.
I love the fact that you got Lynch and Charles going head to head. That's fun.
Yeah, let's see.
And Davis.
And Davis, the combination of Charles and Davis. No, I need to have like a punt return or something. I got nobody else. This is the reality. I have nobody else. Doug Martin is hurt. DeMarco Murray's on a bye. Stephen Taylor is hurt. I got my tight ends. I already got a tight end. I got Tim Wright in there already.
So I jumped ahead a little bit. We're now at an hour and 5 minutes. So let's wrap up here. It's now time for our closing thoughts from the commissioner. I know we certainly have one important reminder about the trade deadline. What else do we have coming up?
And Sunday at 1 o'clock. So, Hank, though that might be the best you can do right now. Hopefully by Sunday 1 o'clock you can do a little bit better for your lineup. The other big announcement is I will be out of town this weekend. I've got a guest spot lined up for the commissioner's report. Kevin Kramer will be doing the FAIR process. And any trade deadline deals that need to be processed, he'll get on the site. I'll actually be in the Bahamas, so go me.
Nice, Chief.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now I gave up, as I've told most of you over the last year. I gave up DirecTV this year. I mean, they finally just, and it's not the Sunday ticket itself. It's just the cost of carrying DirecTV. It has finally priced me out of to the point where it's cheaper for me to go get drunk at a bar and get a cab home and watch the Patriots game on the days that not on national TV. So now I'm stuck. And the good part about DirecTV, the Sunday ticket, was I could watch whatever game I wanted to in the other time slot. And there's really you can't understate the value of that instead of watching Redskins and or Ravens to 1 o'clock games. So now I'm back on the general public TV schedule, and I'm watching Cowboys versus Jacksonville playing in London last week.
Yeah.
Okay. This game was 31-9 at the start of the fourth quarter, and for some goddamn reason, Fox decided to stay with this game until the end. Now we had San Francisco and New Orleans, trading scores to force overtime, and they got back to the very last play of the game. We had two other very competitive games, but what is a justification to show Cowboys Jacksonville until all zeros on this week? You can't see Big Ben from the stadium. You can't appreciate the sights of London. There's no beefeaters on the field. So what the fuck? You're watching the game. It's no different than watching a game from Tennessee, from watching a game from San Diego, Green Bay, whatever. But it's been about 40 years since the Cowboys were America's team. So let's move on. And if Cowboys want to play Tony Romo 16 minutes in a game with a back injury, they took a 10-hour flight to and from. That's their business. Play DeMarco Murray to the final whistle, fine. Des Bryant, whatever you want to do. That's Jerry's business. But don't make me, the paying consumer, watch that Drek for fucking 60 minutes with no other options on TV. So, that being said, Stick, take us home.
I presume we did that to avoid international incidents with England, but who knows? All right, so I just want to thank our panel, Hank, Berto, Chief, and our special guest this week, Ralph. Nice webcast, a little bit on the long side, but who cares anymore? Hope everybody's watching. Look forward to your feedback. And good luck to all teams. And really, except for Ralph, again, 11 teams are watching scores and thinking they've got a chance at the playoffs here. So a lot of big games coming up. Hope to see most of you on the chat on Sunday. And we'll see all of you back here next Wednesday to look ahead to Week 12 TFFL action. Take care.
Excellent.
So long.